And I remembered how comforting sewing was
Yeah.
before. And so I tried that as a place to kind of put some of my fillings. And I ended up making some quilts from his ties for my siblings. And
That's
it was a
really cool.
nice catharsis to kind of make it. And,
Yeah.
but also those ties are not all one color scheme. So
Yeah.
that's actually what triggered me to be more confident in my use of color.
Yeah. Is that
Or
the
maybe,
Silk Study 2? Is that one of the tie ones?
yeah, number
Yeah.
one and number two. Yep.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
Did you find it hard to sew? We have another person who sewed a lot after his mom died. Did you find it hard to sew with his ties, or did you find it comforting, or both?
I think it was both. I mean,
Yeah.
the thing is that my dad would go on trips all the time, and he would purposely forget to take a tie with him. So I inherited 400 ties, so there wasn't
Wow.
this sense of preciousness about them, right?
Yeah. Okay,
They're enough
that's
that
crazy
I
and
can,
wonderful.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
really lovely.
right.
Yeah. That's really cool. Okay. So 2008 you come back and what happens then? Cuz you can start to see 2009 you're getting more creative and more
Yeah.
daring, right?
So I think that when I came back to quilting, I could not um, like the really rigid traditional patterns were not holding my attention. There was a sense of futility to it.
Yeah.
Why would we cut things up and sew it back together when it was already one big piece, right?
Yeah.
You know, there is something sort of odd about this enterprise we all take part in.
Yeah.
Um, and so suddenly the quilts had to have meaning for me. And, you know, definitely working with the ties had huge meaning. My
Yeah.
mother had collected pants from a lot of people in the family, and she sent me this giant box of jeans and khakis and painter's pants. And so you'll see a couple of denim quilts that suddenly appear in this stream of quilts. And so one of them is a really large log cabin, courthouse steps design that's blue on two sides and browns on the other sides. And then also an improvisational denim quilt. I think it's called Freedom or something. And so there, you know, there couldn't be any more deep meaning than that these came from my family and represented sort of the range of vocations that are in my family, right? The khakis were my dad. He
It's so
worked with the
cool.
government and he was constantly going to testify before the legislature, you know.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, I have cousins who still work the farm
Yeah.
and other cousins who are contractors. And so, you know, suddenly I'm realizing that these quilts can do something
Right.
beyond just
They
being
can have
something
deeper
pretty and
meaning
warm.
than just fabric you buy at a shop.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. And so that is, do you have any of those on your website made from those materials?
Yeah. If you're looking on the stream of quilts
Yeah.
on my website, one of them is called Hearth,
Okay, let
and
me take a
it's
look.
that's the log cabin.
Hearth. Yeah. Oh, wow.
There,
Really?
right?
Okay, that is okay. See, your stuff is so incredibly cool. Like that's so cool because it's
Yeah.
blues and creams and khakis, and of course, then you look at it, and if it's you know that it's fabric from
Yeah.
pants, it
Mm,
totally changes what it is, right?
right. So you
That's
can
so
see all the
cool.
different shades of denim, like the
Yeah,
blues. Yeah. And then, yeah, I guess the improvisational one is not on that page, but
yeah, that's really cool.
um, yeah, so that's that one.
Uh huh.
Um, and so from there, though, I turned to more improvisational kinds of design work
Yeah,
because I realized that now I don't have to, like measuring can get to be really unnerving. If
yeah,
you're a perfectionist, then getting all those points to work out work right can be the most frustrating thing on the face of the earth. And
yeah.
so improv then becomes a way to free me up to explore all different kinds of designs and different color combinations and
It's very
what is
cool.
it and ask a lot of what if questions, right?
Yeah, this is so cool. All right, so then you moved, maybe not didn't move, but on this progression, all of your word quilts are just so
Mm-hmm.
cool. So you
Yeah.
start do you start them in 2011? Is that when you start to do word quilts?
Yes. So this woman, Tanya Rakucci, um, put up on a blog, on Bonnie Hunter's blog. Bonnie Hunter is Quiltville,
Mm-hmm.
um, and a tutorial on how to do improvisational lettering. It's no longer on that blog because she turned it into a book called Word Play Quilts.
Uh-huh.
And so I actually learned from the blog. And then, of course, I bought a copy of the book anyway,
Uh-huh.
just because I was so appreciative of what she had given away.
Uh-huh.
And so, again, in pursuit of meaning, so I started asking these questions. Okay, so I made this quilt out of my family's fabrics. What does that then mean that the quilt says about me, right?
Right.
So when you go to Nordstrom's to buy yourself a comforter because you're among the great unwashed who can't make a quilt,
Uh-huh.
how do you choose which comforter to buy, right?
Right.
There's not just one standard issue comforter. You're given choice, and there's something about the meaning in which one you choose. And
Yeah.
so my initial word quilts are starting to explore that. So so what are the, the series of quilts is called Who I Think You Think I Am,
I like that.
right?
Yeah.
And so we start with princess because I totally am a princess, and because my dad definitely treated me like one.
Right.
And so it's pink and it's got a little floral, and the word princess is written rather daintily. Then we move to bitch, and even the word is written in a much more aggressive style,
Yeah.
and it's surrounded by a vintage sheet that's red and white stripes, and then that's surrounded by a nice tough denim outer shell,
That's really cool. I love
like
it.
a good, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but it was all actually going towards a response to something that was happening at the place where I work, which was the use of racial epithets, but in vandalism around campus.
Really?
And yeah, and the N word was used over and over again. We got the Cleary reports, which are common on college campuses, where there's a requirement that crimes are reported to the community,
Uh-huh.
and the reports would all say, okay, this word was written on a bathroom stall. This word was written, on a message board, but nothing was being done, right? So there was no legal follow up, and then also no conversation on campus about these activities. That happened 11 times,
Wow.
and then on the 12th time, the difference was there was a swastika, and along
Interesting.
with the N word.
That's really
So that's
interesting.
11 instances of the
Right.
N word. And then we get
That's
to
right.
the 12th one, and it was a true scatter shot. It also said dyke and bitch and whore, and but there was a swastika on it. And suddenly there was a
They
whole
took
rally
serious.
about how
Yep.
terrible it is to use
That's
the
right.
swastika.
Yep. That happens,
Yeah.
right? Yep.
But nobody ever addressed the N word.
Yeah.
And so I needed to respond to that, but I have a unique position because I'm kind of in the math department, so it's not like I can go speak out on the basis of my research, and
Right.
and so
Right.
I have to be super careful because the
Right.
students I educate, they're going to go build a bridge one day, and I don't want them to not be listening to my class because they're upset about my personal opinions, right?
Right.
They need to build that bridge because we all don't want to fall off. And so
Yeah.
I have a more difficult kind of role to play on the campus. And so these quilts then became my outlet. And so it's not listed on that page, but instead there's a separate page called Not Safe for Work Quilts.
Yeah. I like that. Like not safe for
Yeah.
work quilts. Right. So
And so then I made one with the N word on it.
yeah.
And yeah, it's more of a performative quilt that
Yeah.
no matter how you try to wrap it around you, you can't cover up that word. And
That's
that's
really
really kind of what
interesting.
my community
How
thinks.
is how is that received when you made that quilt? It's black with white letters, right?
Yeah. And then it's quilted really densely because I was so angry.
That's really
And so,
interesting.
it's getting out my,
I like that. I like the quilting densely because you're angry. How did people receive it? It's stunning even in the picture. So I'm curious what happened after you made that quilt.
So, well, it depends on the venue in which it was viewed, right?
Right.
Um, so on Flickr, I showed it to a very limited audience, and obviously I picked the people who I thought would give me honest reactions, and
Yeah.
most of them were very generous and thought that it was a nice quilt. Like they interacted with it in almost the academic way that I wanted them to.
Yeah.
And so they were cherry picked. But then it appeared on a website called Whip Up, which is now defunct. And so you can't actually see that interaction there. But Whip Up was this Australian website. It was kind of a panorama of all craftiness. But she did post, this woman, Catherine Ricketson, who has passed away, she would post just some really challenging art every once in a while. And so she wanted to talk about this quilt. And so she asked me to write a guest post. And the big mistake was that I didn't put a picture of myself up there. And so the response was, I don't know if you know this, right? Trying to talk to an Australian woman and tell her that you have to be Black if you're going to use this word.
That's
but
interesting.
but it kind of put forward that there was this assumption that quilters can't be Black. And that to me is the more interesting outcome of this. Right?
What's that about? That's so weird, right? Yeah. Right.
So I had to quickly write a second post to Shibboleth. Yes, I'm Black. It's okay for me to use the word. And I gave the backstory. And then, there was pretty good response, but then, then it got picked up by trolls who, racist trolls who came by to make pretty terrible comments. And so I was done. Like, that's not my intention. I'm not hosting those conversations. And so, so it just depends on the audience.
Totally depends. All right. So while we're here, so I adore your quilts. They're really cool. Tell us about your other projects that are not NSFW projects.
Yeah. So I definitely started challenging censorship with the word. So I take everything and try to push it to the edge. And so I challenged censorship. There are a couple of quilts there that were pretty effective at that. Then after that, though, right, it's cute to challenge censorship, but then you need to move on to something meaningful, actually. And so this was the beginning of sort of the Black Lives Matter movement at the same time. And so it was a good time to transition.
Yeah. Now, before we transition to that, tell me about your Give a F Word quilt.
Oh, yeah. So I had made, George Carlin, comedian, 20th century mainly, he got,
right.
So all the way to the Supreme Court because he said some words and he was charged with indecency.
Yeah.
For usage of a certain set of words on the airwaves. And so he has this joke called 7 Words You Can't Say on Television. And so I made a baby quilt using those words, primary colors, right?
Right.
Like any good reader. And and it was actually a wedding present for a friend.
That's great.
And, and putting that out there, I got some response saying, well, first of all, that's not a quilt. I'm like, no, it's 3 layers that are sewn together. So it's definitely a quilt. Right. Then another comment was, you're ruining the quilt world. Another comment was, you're going to hell, right?
Right.
And so it turned personal pretty quickly.
That's pretty funny. That's so weird. People are so weird. I just don't understand it. But at least you're getting reaction from them. So maybe that's something. I don't know.
Well, but I'm asking the question of are there unallowable topics for quilts, right? I mean, are you? And so the insistence was that you can only talk about babies and Jesus on a quilt. That was the parameters that the examiners were kind of trying to place upon me and upon the community. And I was saying no. Right. And so after that, I wanted to kind of illustrate that, no, it's not just me, that other artists are not only willing, but interested in expressing themselves. And so I asked, 69 of my favorite friends to to make a block, each make a block of the F word.
So
And they're
interesting.
all different. They're all expressing
They're
different